You know, we don't often think of pruning this time of year, especially on days like today where the temperatures are up in the 90 degrees. But we really need to get out in our landscape and orchard again and check things out, because there's a lot of things that we can do during the summer called summer pruning that will help keep us from getting into problems later on. Now, we're in our fruit orchard, and this is one of our pear trees that was damaged from the deer this past year. And of course, Mother Nature is doing its natural thing and sending up suckers below the wound trying to salvage the tree. But we don't want that to happen, because these suckers at the bottom are coming up below the graft, so they won't be the true variety that we've purchased. And they'll also drain a lot of the nutrients from the tree, because the tree's been here about 4 years trying to get it established. So we need to come in and prune off these suckers and try to get them as smooth as we can. And again, this will have to be done pretty much throughout the summer, because they'll continually send up the sprouts. Now, the easiest way is right when they start coming out, just take your fingers and rub them off along the branch. That's really the easiest thing to do. But again, once they're at this stage, we just need to come in and prune them off. Now, if you've got a newly planted tree with a lot of branches, you want to leave those on, because it will help in getting the circumference of the tree to be a little bit bigger. And we've talked about that before. But on your fruit trees, again, you want to keep that a little bit smooth. And then if we're concerned with any kind of sun scald or anything, we can always put a white latex paint on it if we're going to have any problems there. Now, another type of pruning we need to be concerned about this time of year too is dealing with some hedges. And let's go over onto the campus and see what kind of things we can find over there. We're on the Oklahoma State University campus, and once you come to visit here, you'll find that there are shrubs utilized all over the landscape. And of course, that's for aesthetics, but also to help in traffic flow and also a little bit in sound barriers. And our grounds crew, under the direction of Steve Newton and Mike Burnett, really do a great job in keeping these up. Now, what we're pruning is called a trifoliate orange, or a mock orange. And one way that you can identify that is by the long stickers that come out on and it's really related to the orange. And a lot of times our citrus that we'll see in Florida and South Texas are grafted onto this type of a hedge. But it's very sturdy and durable, but it can also cause some problems and injury, but it does do a great job of directing the traffic flow. Now, the shears that I was using were just our regular Fiskars that we got in with the new design. And they're nice on small jobs like this, but really when we get into a larger job, we need to use electric trimmers or even gas trimmers like we've got here. Now, a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. Of course, you want to choose something that is cost affordable, and the ranges in price can be anywhere from, say, $35 up to $300, depending on the type that you purchase. But the main thing that you need to keep in mind is look at the teeth on your pruners. A lot of the larger spaces between them are really more for the heavy-duty or commercial type operations. For a home situation, really you want to look for those that don't have quite that much space between them, just because they're safer to use and it's a little bit easier to keep your fingers out of them. Another thing that you want to look for too is make sure that they have a second handle. This helps in better grip, a little safety feature again that's really important for you to use. Now, this is a gas-powered one, and again, it's going to be a little bit more costly and it's heavier, but you'll get a little better usage, and of course you can go and travel larger distances versus an electric model. But again, you just need to keep in mind the safety features when you're purchasing it and read the manual that comes along with it. But you also need to invest in some goggles. That's the very most important thing that you need to use. And then wear gloves and long sleeves, and even possibly some ear blocks or anything like that if they're really noisy, just for a little extra safety. But most importantly are the eye goggles. And of course, with a shrub like this one's several years old, and we've got a lot of woody debris at the top. When we're pruning them, we just mainly are shearing out the suckers that grow through the summertime. But a complete renovation would be cutting below it, trying to force some new growth as well. And that's usually in most severe cases that we need to do it. And we'll go and talk about some other shrubs on campus that we can use and some of the problems that we can try to avoid on this one here. Another commonly used shrub here on the campus is the arborvitae. And the arborvitae has a nice texture, and usually we think of it as a shrub that makes a large shrub or even a small tree, which it will. But in these conditions, they've planted them very close together, and then they take a lot of pruning, heavy pruning, a lot of maintenance to get them to this point. And the nice thing about the arborvitae is too that it has a lot of buds that will sucker out and form the nice dense foliage that we see. Now it may look like this is a rectangular cut hedge, but that really is the key to the success of growing hedges. Really it's narrower at the top, and then they taper it off where it makes a wider base at the bottom. And the purpose for that is so it can get sunlight. If it's angled where it's narrower at the bottom, it shades it out, just like the trifoliate orange that we just talked about. If you'll recall, on the bottom of it, it was really thin and sparse, and that's because it really wasn't hedged wider at the bottom like it should be. And that's very crucial to get sunlight at the bottom so it will provide a nice shape for you. Now the arborvitae is a good plant to use, and it withstands a lot of harsh conditions, but you can tell here we've got a lot of discoloration, so it's not without problems. And what we're seeing here is some disease called phomopsis, but we're also seeing spider mites, which one way to test for that is just to take your white sheet of paper, we've talked about this before, and tap the foliage and watch, and you'll see little specks starting to crawl. And this time of year where the sun and the hot temperatures kick in, we get a lot of spider mites on junipers and plants like this. So we've got a little bit, again, of disease, we've got spider mites, and the other problem we have is just stress. And we've had a lot of water, we had a little bit of winter damage, and it's kind of hard to distinguish between the two. So if you aren't sure and you're seeing a lot of this and you want to get it tested, the best thing to do is collect some samples and take to your county extension office, and there'll be a charge, but they'll send it to our diagnostic lab and they'll get it tested for you. Now the number one problem in people taking samples to the county office is they'll come up and they'll cut off areas just like this that are completely dead. And folks, we can't tell you anything about it other than it's dead. And if you send this in, there's so many secondary things that are coming in and breaking it down, they can't give you a test on it. So what you need to do is collect some of the dead, but also some of the areas where they're just starting to turn or yellow out, and get some of the healthy tissue too, and get a wide range of samples. Here you can see some of the foliage that's just starting to turn brown. So you need some samples of different types, and even some that maybe have a blackish color or spores. So it's really important that you send in the right sample. Now also on campus you'll see a lot of the shrubs being used, and this one is pyracantha, and it's used as a shrub and pruned into a hedge. And we're seeing some fire blight show up on it, which is a common problem on apple trees and pears, but it also shows up on the pyracantha, and the tip looks like it's been burned and it starts to curl and then it spreads down. And again, that's a bacteria, and again the county extension office can tell you how to control that. But proper pruning is real important, and then sterilizing your pruners after each cut. But again, it looks like a blackened appearance, it's dead, it starts to curl just like we would see on the apples and pears. And another commonly used hedge on the campus is euonymus. And this particular one has been killed back by the cold winters for 2 years in a row. And they just keep pruning it back and allowing it to sucker. And again, it's really stressing the plant out and probably should be replaced, but it would be very costly to do that. So you can tell selection is very important when we're selecting our shrubs to use as a hedge. And one that people use an awful lot of is juniper. And we've got some over here on this side of us, and junipers aren't like the arborvitae. The arborvitae, again, has buds that will send out suckers. Juniper, you have to allow it to grow its mature size and just barely shear it at the top, because once you severely prune it, there are no other secondary buds that will send out foliage for you. So if you're interested in trying to select the right variety, contact your extension office. They can help you out, or go by your local nurseryman and check for that certified nurseryman's symbol too.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.